Now, the agricultural sector in Nigeria employs around about 70% of the country's working population. And the sector also contributes nearly 21% to Nigeria's total gross domestic product.
Agricultural entrepreneurship, or agripreneurship, refers to the ability to change or abandon old models and enter new phases of agriculture, which are often characterized by new challenges, free markets, sustainability, digital technology, and this is now a common business model in the agricultural sector.
Now, industry watchers say that entrepreneurial skills enable farmers make better decisions in a complex, competitive, and elaborate environment. Over the years, several initiatives were targeted towards enhancing entrepreneurship in the nation's agricultural sector. Some of those initiatives, of course, have included the Anchor Borrowers Program, the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, and the Growth Enhancement Support Scheme.
Others will include the CBN's Agri-Business Small and Medium Enterprise Investment Scheme and the Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme.
Now, the hitherto moribund National Agricultural Land Development Authority, NALDA, is also creating farm estates across the country, while the National Agricultural Technology and Innovation Plan, which is a 4-year blueprint, has been designed to help Nigeria's COVID-19 economic recovery.
And there is also training for more extension agents, while agri-tech companies now offer digital solutions that provide farmers with access to market, financial service, credit farm inputs, quality seeds, and fertilizer.
The Agricultural Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme is an initiative of the Bankers Committee as well as the Entrepreneurship Development Institute of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, this is an accredited center for development of entrepreneurial capabilities. Both initiatives target enhancement of the agri sector, especially for entrepreneurs.
In 2021, Agripreneurship generated about 34.65 billion naira under the Phase 1 of the Agricultural Transformation Agenda Support Program, signaling a major positive shift in the fortunes of entrepreneurship or entrepreneurs in that sector.
In spite of these gains, entrepreneurs in the sector are still confronted with several issues, including access to inexpensive funds and access to available funds also provided by the government. Now, there is still some hesitation on the part of young Nigerians to adopt agriculture as a business. Well, these issues inform our focus on boosting agri-entrepreneurship in Nigeria in our conversation segment for today. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Kirin Umayo. I join Kingsley to say welcome to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We shall as well serve you our complimentary segments in the course of today's package. For now, here is our colleague Comfort Amodu with the morning news highlights. Good morning and good to see you, Comfort.
Good morning, Kiran and Kingsley, and good morning, Nigerians. Here's the morning news. The Federal Executive Council has approved a reverse policy for Nigerian science, technology, and innovation sector. And this is to enable the country to keep pace with new and emerging technological advancement globally. Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Bonaya Onu, announced this at a media briefing after the meeting of the council presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari.
The main objective is for us to use science, technology, and innovation to improve the standard of living of our citizens. And this we can get if our nation becomes more prosperous and our economy is more globally competitive. We would like to see Nigeria using this policy to be one of the top scientific powers in the world.
6 new national commissioners have been sworn in to fill existing vacancies in the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. And President Muhammadu Buhari performed the ceremony before presiding over the weekly meeting of the Federal Executive Council.
We feel honored that we've been nominated as national commissioners, and we'll make sure that we meet the public expectations and the expectations of the president for a free, fair, and credible election.
We want to assure Nigerians that we will deliver on a very, very clean election come 2023.
We will key in to the mission and vision of INEC, and you just saw us taking an oath. So that oath guides us to ensure that Nigerians get the best in INEC. The yearning and aspiration of Nigeria will be fulfilled.
And President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to sign the long-awaited Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021 this Friday, all things being equal. Authoritative presidency source confirmed that the president will be performing his duty of assenting to the bill around 12 noon. This is coming after public anxiety had mounted in the last few weeks, as some critical stakeholders and some members of the public have already concluded that the president is withholding assent again. And the National Assembly transmitted the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021 to President Buhari on January 31st, a second time having reportedly reversed the bill, which he withheld his assent to for some noted reasons. Even though the president is yet to assent to the re-amended bill more than 20 days after it was transmitted to him constitutionally, he has a 30-day window within which he is mandated to either assent or state reasons for not doing such. And the Senate Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 2022 has laid its report before the Senate, and the First Lady of Nigeria, Aisha Buhari, witnessed the laying of the report.
Mr. President, I assume that she is here with the potential 37 new senators that will come into the Senate following the adoption of the want to create an affirmative action for more female parliamentarians in both chambers, in the Senate and the House and the state legislatures.
In other news, the companies involved in the importation of adulterated PMS into Nigeria have been requested to provide backing documents of the origin, quality and quantity of the products in question. The House Committee investigating the matter made the request after receiving oral summary of the delivery by the companies.
We had executed was to ensure the quality delivery up to when the STS, the ship-to-ship transfer, happened.
As a responsible government entity, we are not just in business to make money, but also to guarantee the energy security of our great nation and will never compromise.
In continuation of her solidarity and support to gender parity, the First Lady Aisha Buhari took part in plenaries of the two chambers of the National Assembly to observe proceedings on issues related to women participation in politics and other decision-making processes.
We are here this afternoon to peacefully observe the proceedings on constitutional review about women, and also to listen to the proceedings also concerning the 35 affirmative action about women and special additional seats for women in the National Assembly.
That's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Kinsley and Kirian right after this break. Good morning.
The ever-busy ancient city of Onitsha is a commercial hub with millions of commuters seamlessly linking other states daily for business, leisure, and other purposes. To upscale its road network, The construction of a 1.6-kilometer long second Niger bridge, including a 10.3-kilometer highway furnished with other infrastructure, has been in motion by the federal government. This project will ease congestion on the existing 56-year-old Onitsha bridge and boost the economic capacity of the state as it easily connects to other parts of the country. The completion of the world-class second Niger bridge Onitsha will be one of the many proud moments of the state, its people, Nigerians, and foreign investors. Onitsha, which hosts the largest market in Africa, is geared up to boast of an impressive road network. Once again, these moments are made alive by the federal government, and it is deserving of all the applause.
You won't go shake your body. Instead, they make it calm down. Eat the farm, say you sabi. You want to grow 6 packs in a day. I beg you, don't do pass your power. You want to show yourself, oh.
Whatever your size, find it with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# now to get the plan that suits you. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Contemporary times require practical skills to remain competitive and relevant in your organization. Therefore, take advantage of NTA TV College Short Proficiency courses to sharpen your professional skills. Computer Appreciation for Media Practitioners. Date 21st February to 28th February 2022. 1 week. English Grammar and Pronunciation for Broadcasters. Date 1st March to 25th March. 4 weeks. Administrative Principles, Processes and Practices. Date 11th March to 31st March 2022. 4 weeks. Modern Trends in Broadcast Media Marketing. Date 14th March to 13th April 2022. 4 weeks. Basic Broadcast Accounting and Auditing. Date 4th April to 19th April 2022. 2 weeks. The course fee for the 1 week course is 100,000 naira per participant. The fee for the 2 week course is 150,000 naira, while the course fee for the 4 week course is 180,000 naira only, accommodation inclusive. The venue for all courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA TV College, near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For more inquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
Shola, come and help me. You need to learn.
But I'm more interested in drawing.
How are you going to be part of the business if you don't learn?
You just don't understand.
Morning. Anyone for some Lipton?
The rich taste of Lipton awakens body and mind.
Let me have a look at your drawings. Son, these designs are amazing.
Lipton Yellow Label Tea. Awaken to what really matters.
Watford will seek to do a double over the Red Devils when they travel to Old Trafford this weekend. It's Manchester United versus Watford on the Premier League Live, showing on the network service of the NTA from 3:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Baba Ijebu, empowered by Integral.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we thank you for staying with us. Now it's time for business. To sustain Nigeria's 2021 GDP growth, financial experts enjoin economic managers to focus on sectors with high employment elasticity. Let's now join Kunle Adeye for details.
Having surpassed the projections of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and the federal government, Nigeria's economy grew by 3.4% in 2021, up from the 1.92% contraction recorded in 2020. The growth rate of 3.98 in the fourth quarter of 2021 and the overall growth of 3.4% for the year indicates a steady recovery of the economy. A professor of capital market, Uche Uwaleke, says sustaining the growth rate requires special focus on sectors with high employment elasticity.
And then the other sectors too that, of course, drove growth include trade, ICT, and financial information services. More attention should be given to manufacturing. More attention should be given to construction. These, for me, are employment-generating sectors. Another good thing about the GDP number is that the non-oil sector, has continued to drive growth in Nigeria.
And quickly to the closing figures on the floor of the exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeye.
Thank you very much, Kunle, for the business news package, and good morning, Nigeria. Up next, newspaper review.
We're glad to have newspaper reviewer Bayo Atayebi as always. Bayo, it's good to see you again.
Thank you. Okay, good morning. Good morning, Kingsley.
Good to see you.
Yes, the falcon yesterday did not annoy the elephants.
They tamed the elephants.
They didn't annoy them. If they had annoyed them, you talked about the anger of an elephant.
That's right. Well, that's why I said they tamed the elephants. And
got them flat-footed.
Qualification is assured now. All right, so congratulations to them. I didn't watch the match, though. All right, let's take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. I'm pretty busy this morning. From above the nameplate, you have the following headlines. LCCI and others back National Assembly on proposed railways, airports, and power decentralization. Current system suffocating Nigerians, that's according to Bishop Kuka. $1.04 billion spent on fuel imports in 2021, says CBN. Strike continues, ASO insists, and Ngige pleads with union. Now, 2 earpieces. That's 1 earpiece, actually, with a rider. Fuel scarcity persists as NNPC releases 387.6 million liters. Reps dipping probe. Oando, Duke Oil insists government approved dirty fuel. This story comes with a kicker: constitutional amendment. Outrage as National Assembly considers life pension for presiding officers. It's wasteful, self-centered. Reject it, CSOs tell lawmakers. It's financial burden. Committee recommends pension for Senate President, Speaker, and deputies. And then you see the photographs there on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Fire destroys Finance Ministry inverter room. Fire destroys Finance Ministry inverter room. And Buhari signs electoral bill Friday. TSO suspend protests. Hoodlums gathered by cops and soldiers demolish structures in Lagos slum. PDP threatens legal action as Zamfara Assembly impeaches deputy governor. Federal government's school feeding costs 100 naira per child and scheme to go up 1 billion naira daily. Forgery, that's the kicker. Abuja Hospital denies issuing Fani Kayode medical report. Court orders interim forfeiture of Yaris U.S. properties and others. Kirian.
Okay, now to the Daily Sun newspaper. Declare sponsors of terrorism wanted. Senate tells the federal government. That's on page 38. Airlines deny 50,000 naira fare hike. And the operators of airlines lose about 200 billion naira monthly over bed strikes. That's on page 2. Constitution amendment. National Assembly proposes immunity for judges, legislators, independent candidacy. As lawmakers lay report, that's on page 4. Fuel scarcity, NNPC distributes 387.5 million liters. Queues reduce, according to the Sun. That's on page 22. Buhari swears in 6 new INEC commissioners. That's on page 27. Niger government shows preference for young president. That's on page 29. Methodist Bishop lament Leah Sharibu's continued captivity. It's on page 3. Educate members to elect credible candidates, Wike tells Anglican Church. And ASU, FG ASU dialogue deadlocked. Meeting to resume next week. It's on page 29. Katsina begs Buhari for more troops to fight banditry. On page 29. The other stories on the Daily Sun that Kinsley has also read. Now let's quickly go through the Nation newspaper. Above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper, court orders for feature of 10 properties linked to Yari. That's on page 2. IMF calls for banks recapitalization. On page 7, COVID-19 hit sector. All right, now battle for APC top post shifts to zones. It's on page 4 of the Nation. Zamfara gets new deputy governor after Gusel's sack. We've read this. Airlines lost $60 million. This one is in dollars to bed strikes in 1 year. Arewa Solar's man asks court to void Oyetola's victory. All that on page 3. Now the lead story on the Nation: lawmakers to vote on VAT, power devolution, and others. With the 2 riders, constitutional review enters crucial stage. Speakers to reps, you must participate. All right, that's about it all. Adamawa College students to pay 4,500 naira rehabilitation levy. It's on page 30. Of course, in the picture, in the front page of the Nation, we have Nana Asmao Government Girls College, Kamba, Kebbi State Hostel, razed by fire. That's on Monday. Now let's bring in Bayo.
Thank you, Kyria.
For the analysis.
Most papers are strong indicating that there's every likelihood the Amendment Bill 2022 will be signed tomorrow, Friday. The Daily Trust reports a presidential source as indicating that all the anxieties over the bill will disappear by Friday afternoon, as he will sign the bill around noon. The National Assembly transmitted the amendment bill to the President on 31st of January. Meanwhile, the President has sworn in 6 National Electoral Commissioners of the Independent National Electoral Commission. 2 of the commissioners, Mohammed Haruna and Mrs. Agbamuche Umbu, were reappointed. The 4 others are newly appointed. They are Ikeagu Nnamdi, retired Major General Abubakar Alkali, Professor Rada Gumuz, and Sam Elumekum. It was held before the Federal Executive Council took place yesterday. The National Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, said the commission is now ready with 12 commissioners to fire from all cylinders. Says Nigerians can now expect the best out of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Issues about the amendments too. The First Lady led a delegation to both chambers of the National Assembly to witness the laying of the report of the amendment to the 1999 Constitution. Reports from in the blueprint indicate that following affirmative action, about 111 seats are expected to be preserved for women, 37 in the Senate, 74 in the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, in the Zamfara State House of Assembly has impeached Barrister Mahdi Aliyu as Deputy Governor of the state. The Speaker of Zamfara State House of Assembly, Honorable Nasir Muazu Magaria, says that the House passed a resolution to remove the Deputy Governor from office over gross misconduct. He said the 7-man investigative panel that was appointed by the Chief Judge of the state indicted the deputy governor for misconduct. After the presentation of the report, all the 20 members of the Zamfara State House of Assembly voted in the affirmative for the resolution. The resolution was consequently transmitted to the secretary to the Zamfara State government. And in the following development, Governor Bello Matawale yesterday nominated Senator Hassan Mohammed Gusau as deputy governor.
But Bayo, let's talk a bit about that impeachment. Well, I don't know what the process was, whether they were able to follow the right process, the constitutional process, to remove him, because PDP in that state is saying that he's going to court. I don't know the connection. How could another party go to court? Because
there were allegations made, and the chief judge of the state appointed a 7-man panel to investigate. The honorable deputy governor was invited before the panel that was investigating, but hitherto he had filed a motion at the Federal High Court in Abuja, and the High Court had ordered that everything be stayed until the hearing. And so based on that, and as a lawyer, he said he was not going to appear before the panel, because if he does so, it will appear in contempt with the decision of the court. But the Zamfara State House of Assembly decided to go ahead because it is the procedures of the legislature which they felt that the proceedings of the court should not interfere with, and it was carried out. But there are indications that the party has also indicated that they are going to court to challenge that. But don't forget, there are some impeachments that have been challenged, and courts have reversed them. So time will tell.
Well, I think the surprise would have been if the Zamfara House of Assembly did not reach the decision that it reached. In other words, the same old story of a deputy governor who falls out with the governor, and then you then find the House of Assembly putting together articles of impeachment, and then setting up the entire process and machinery for the removal of the governor. The process is often usually very swift. But as you said, Bayo, the deputy governor of Enugu, if you remember him,
yes.
Sunday,
he was impeached for having a
poultry behind the government house. Eventually, he went to court, and the court struck down that impeachment. What we haven't seen is the impeachment of governors. In recent years, we had seen purported attempts at removing governors, but because the governors themselves are the kingpins in their domains, the monarchs in their domains, it doesn't work. But ultimately it just makes sometimes very challenging nonsense, if you like, of the constitutional provisions. I wouldn't know whether there are provisions relating to amendments in the proposals that we have now to alter the process and procedure for impeaching persons who are named in that, let's just say, president, vice president, governor, or deputy governor. The powers wielded by the State Houses of Assembly, those powers have been exercised in a rather arbitrary, even perfunctory manner, such that a deputy governor's position continues to remain what Ezefe once referred to as a spare tire. But you can't discard a spare tire when you are supposed to be on the road. When you then have an issue, what do you do? Your spare tire must be in good condition, just like your other tires.
The thing is that it all depends on how the courts are going to handle the matter, because it could last up to another 1 year, even after the expiration of the administration of the government in that state. And even if the deputy governor gets justice after all said and done, he has left the seat.
Well, he's left the seat. In most cases, it's not just going back to the seat, but his perquisites and entitlement will be restricted.
You saw what happened in Kogi, for instance. The deputy governor was also removed in similar circumstances, and I think that we ought to be able to address this. We have discussed it a number of times, and I think critical stakeholders have also raised their voices, with regard to the shabby manner in which deputy governors have been treated, especially since 1999. And we have seen examples. It's examples of how some deputy governors have managed to become governors. I mean, Goodluck Jonathan succeeded Alamé Sega, and then just a minute, succeeded Alamé Sega, and Ganduje also became governor of Kano. But in the vast majority of cases, deputy governors rarely
become governors.
Succeed their principals. Just what is happening. Again, it has to be with the recruitment process, as some persons have argued, that their deputies are imposed on them, they don't allow them to choose, so strange bedfellows, they're just managing to tolerate each other until the game is over.
On the corruption front, the Federal High Court in Abuja has ordered the interim forfeiture of 10 property. One of them is in Maryland, USA, as well as funds in some banks allegedly owned by Alhaji Abdulaziz Yari. The court ordered is from an ex parte motion by the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission to enable it investigate the forfeiture. Some of the property are said to be Maryland, USA. Others are at FAP Estate in Abuja and others in Kaduna. It is alleged that they have been acquired by the former governor of Zamfara with funds allegedly stolen from Zamfara state government. Persons with interest have been given 14 days to show interest why such property should not be permanently forfeited. Justice Egwatu granted ICPC another 60 days to conclude investigation for final forfeiture of the property. It may be recalled that another Abuja Federal High Court in January 2021 also ordered forfeiture of funds held in 2 banks, all belonging to the former governor of Zamfara State.
Bayo, may I draw attention to this story on the Daily Sun?
Yes.
Let's not discuss it. That's a National Assembly proposes immunity for judges, legislators, independent candidates. But they're talking about immunity for judges and legislators. What do you make of that? If all the legislators are given immunity, the number is on the high side, and
they have flown a kite, and there are arguments that even the immunity that is provided for chief executives, the president, the vice president, and governors and deputy governors, is indirectly in contradiction to the fact that nobody is above the law. And therefore, some have argued that it should be an immunity against civil litigation. But if an executive commits a crime, since nobody is above the law, he should face the music. But be that as it may, if the immunity persists, after the 4 years, after the tenure, you can still be tried for prosecuted.
I think that, sorry, gentlemen, I think that we should await the details of the reports that have been tabled before the Senate as they begin to consider the various clauses in the bills that make up the amendment or the alteration to the Constitution. We will see the clearer provision. The reason I'm saying this, Kirian, is that when that point came up some weeks ago, it was actually indicated that there was a proposal to tweak the current Section 308 of the Constitution so that it is not an omnibus immunity that the beneficiary gets, that's to say president, vice president, governor, and deputy governor. So exactly how it's been drafted is what I'm not sure of. So that when we see the redraft, we would know, so, okay, what do you intend to achieve and how? That's what will be. The other one, of course, has to do with life pension for presiding officers. I don't know. I find
it difficult to really understand the direction that we go sometimes, you know, in looking at governance issues. Why the issue of giving somebody immunity in the first place? I thought we are taking after the U.S., you know, with the system we're practicing in Nigeria as a democratic entity. You know, why would somebody not seek for immunity for whatever reason? So it does mean to ordinary Nigerian that you of course know that your hands are not clean, so you want to be protected while in office. It is
the issue of the life pension. There's a parallel to that. You recall that some state governors, most states even proposed similar things for former governors. Already state houses of assembly are currently reversing.
Precisely. So what then is the rationale for presiding officers of the National Assembly?
A public servant serves for 35 years.
What about the rest of them?
For life sanction.
And he doesn't get a life
What is the difference between...
A member of the assembly serves for 4 years, and if he's lucky to be elected a speaker or senate president, then he gets a life pension.
So why the disparity?
The longest serving of the presiding officer has been Senator David Mark.
Why must it be the presiding officers? These are equal men in the National Assembly. They're just elected.
And their tenure is
among equals.
And their tenure is unstable. Because in those days when you used to have banana peels, for instance, in the National Assembly, you could be Senate President today, and by evening, you are a floor member.
Yes, of course. But because you have been Senate President, you will now be
These are the kind of,
if it's 1 month.
These are the kind of issues that are well thought out for the NLC and TUC to mount serious advocacy and then shoot it down.
Well, for now, we'll just end the conversation because these last issues we'll tackle now, it's quite unbecoming. I would like to appreciate you once more for being part of our show today. We hope to see you again tomorrow.
We talk about the Falcons. The goalkeeper saved a penalty, and we scored in 89 minutes.
Let them get to the World Cup. Let them get to the World Cup.
That's the point.
Let's encourage them now before they get there. Charity should begin at home.
All right, but we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
If it were the Super Eagles, or you would have been talking about Rangers and Bendel Insurance now.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Let's not get into Bendel Insurance and Rangers. Incidentally, there was a photograph shown recently of Emmanuel Okala, Christian Tuku, and the outgoing governor of Anambra.
Of the paper.
I thought that was very heartwarming.
I don't want to discuss non-existential teams that existed in the past or clubs. So that no longer existing now.
Okay,
so
all right.
Let's take a break. We'll come back.
Kirian, before we take the break, we need to inform our viewers that we'll be expecting the Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Who will be joining us for a conversation around issues on infrastructure, financing and delivery and other matters. We'll be having her for about 30 minutes before we then get into other aspects relating to agro-entrepreneurship. Once again, good quality infrastructure and human capital development are pretty critical issues to our country, and we're expecting the Honorable Minister of Finance to join us for that conversation in the first part before we get into our earlier advertised topic for discussion. Let's take a short break now.
The Nigerian aviation sector is rapidly growing with the construction of new international airport terminals in several regions of the country. The new Murtala Mohammed International Airport has an estimated passenger increase of 30 million annually and 15 million for Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. Malam Aminu Kano International Airport is also expected to open new frontiers for the region with more travel capacity for the annual Hajj, while the new Akanu Ibiam International Airport, Enugu, avails more business opportunities connecting the industrial cities in the region to the world. These new terminals beat world-class standards with enabling infrastructure that aid air travel, tourism, and the eventual growth of the country's GDP.
Open up commerce and, of course, link us to international societies.
People from international community will come here to do business, and then that will bring in more revenue to the state.
Now, distances can be seamlessly covered as Nigeria keeps raising its bar to suit global infrastructure standards.
Well, the housing solution we have developed is a multifaceted one. First, we have tried to lead a program to build what we think will be an acceptable and hopefully affordable housing type based on surveys we did in 2015-2016 and construction that started in 2017. And that's going on in 34 states as the National Housing Program.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please
do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who's a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Watford will seek to do a double over the Red Devils when they travel to Old Trafford this weekend. It's Manchester United versus Watford on the Premier League Live, showing on the network service of the NTA from 3:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Baba Ijebu, empowered by Integral.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Just as I was saying before we went on a short break, quality infrastructure and human capital development are catalysts for overall national growth and development. Hence, requisite investments in them always will yield the results. Now, a couple of days ago, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Dr. Zainab Ahmed, explained some of the key achievements of the current administration in terms of infrastructural upgrade.
Now, her submissions were at a town hall meeting by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. She said that Nigeria plans to spend about 1.42 trillion naira on infrastructure in 2022, while 2.11 trillion naira has been budgeted for human capital development.
Now, the Honorable Minister also indicated that several programs and projects of the Buhari administration aimed at creating the enabling environment for socio-economic development are also well on the cards. They include road infrastructure, refurbishment of investment tax credit scheme, as some of the initiatives.
And they were designed in 2029 to complement and ameliorate the burden of funding road projects by the federal government. This is the focus of our first topic on the program today. So thank you again for staying with us up to this moment as we welcome the Honorable Minister. Kingsley.
That's right. Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Zainab Ahmed, our pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. So let's begin by just getting a background briefly, if you like, in terms of infrastructure investment and what the outcomes have been in nearly 7 years of the Buhari administration, knowing full well that one of the key markers that the president said from the very outset was that there will be no point, first, in seeking to embark on greenfield projects while there were still brown projects that had not been concluded. In other words, there had been abandoned projects, get them completed and running. So how far is the story?
Well, we've come a long way, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. But if I may start by saying that all the things that His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari has embarked on doing are actually yielding results. And what are our, apart from the physical works that you see, but the rate of the growth of the economy is also evidence that these infrastructure investments are really paying dividends. Just last week, we released the fourth quarter GDP report, which showed that the Q4 recorded 3.8% growth. and that is the 5th consecutive quarter of growth since the recession of Q3 2020. But also the aggregate growth for the year 2021 is 3.4%. That is a rate that has outperformed our own projections at 3%, and that of the IMF and the World Bank that puts us at 2.5 to 2.7%. So all of these things are really beginning to come in together and work. Mr. President has made a commitment to grow the economy, enhance security, and fight corruption. And in growing the economy, the first thing that you have to do is to invest in human capital as well as in infrastructure. Mr. President has emphasized that our priorities must be road, rails, power, and water. And we have consistently invested in those key infrastructure projects. And I'll demonstrate to you how much these investments have been. When Mr. President came to power the first time, the budget for the Ministry of Works and Housing for the 2015 budget was 19.7 billion naira. We have grown this budget steadily over time. In 2021, the budget was 3.99, that's about 4 billion naira. And then in 2022 budget, the budget for the Ministry of Works and Housing is 531 billion. So it just shows you how much weight the president has directed should be put in terms of infrastructure. But a similar growth has also been seen in the funding for infrastructure, for water resources, as well as for the power ministries. And Mr. President clearly understands that you have to invest in infrastructure to improve human capital development, as well as to ensure sustainable environment for growth of businesses. So he also had directed that review all the stock of projects that we had seen on the ground, prioritize completion of ongoing projects that are key to adding to the growth of the economy, start new projects only when it's absolutely necessary. And I remember, if I give you an example, Minister of Water Resources made a review, and when he finished his review, he inherited about 45 different very large water projects. So he had to prioritize, and I think he prioritized just 7 to get them to completion. And projects are being commissioned now, not only roads, but rail, as well as the water projects. On our part, in the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, we also prioritize funding for those key projects that Mr. President has directed. We should make sure that there is no funding gap for these projects. And also, some of these projects that are being commissioned now are the legacy projects of Mr. President. So even if he didn't start them, some projects have been abandoned for years, even before he took over, took them on, revised the designs, costed them, in some cases recontracted them, but in most cases just revalidated the contracts, and augmentations were done, and the projects are ongoing and delivering results.
Okay, well, thank you. We may not really go into the specifics in terms of these projects for want of time, but let me ask you this. There are 2 different questions that I have here. How has the private sector responded, to the road to infrastructure development and the refurbishment investment tax credit scheme, and what gains have been recorded in this initiative? Another one is, would like you to tell us about the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority infrastructure development projects and their impact.
So our approach to funding infrastructure, capital projects, but most especially infrastructure, was through different facets. The first, of course, the obvious one is through the budgets. But we also sought to design programs that will encourage the private sector to invest in infrastructure in Nigeria. The first one I'd like to speak to is the Road Infrastructure Tax Credit Scheme. This was launched through an executive order in January 2019. And since then, we have had uptake of 33 major roads. These are roads that are leading to industrial corridors, or they are roads that are key for opening up the economy. The RITS, that we call it for short, is designed for an investor to indicate a road, select a road that they are interested in building. We agree the designs and the costing. They build the road with their money and recover their investments through tax credits over a period of time. We, of course, allow them to have a markup for their financing cost, for inflation, as well as a profit margin. So it's working very well. Good examples are those of these are the Lagos Apapa Road leading to the ports, the Obajana Road in Kogi State, but also so those two were built by Dangote Industries. But also the Boni Bodo Road that is being built by the NLNG with road and bridges. And another example is the investments that are being done by the National Sovereign Investment Authority, the NSIA. The NSIA has, as part of its mandate, a fund that is called the Nigeria Infrastructure Fund, the NIF. Under the NIF, they have undertaken a number of infrastructure. One of them is hospitals that they built, an ultra-modern cancer center in partnership with Lagos University Teaching Hospital. So this is, so LUF gave the space, they did the building, they're operating in partnership, and then once they recover their investment, they will exit and LUF takes over the facility. They built also an ultra-modern diagnostic center in Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, FMC Umuahia, and they're up and running. They're working and serving several clients. And the model is they recover their investment, they run it together with the hospital, training the hospital staff, paying them special salaries, not the regular civil service salary. And once they recover their investment, they exit and hand over to. So that's a model of a PPP, but this one is perhaps a public-public partnership. Then we have also under the NSIA the PIDF, the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund, where some 3 key projects were assigned to the NSIA. We gave them initial funding from the budget, and then they're using $300 million of their own funding to build the second Niger Bridge, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, as well as the Abuja-Kaduna Kano Road. Mambila was supposed to be in that bracket, but up to now we have some significant challenges on Mambila, which we're still trying to unlock.
Well, Honourable Minister, thanks for your explanation. The investment by Dangote on the Apapa-Oroshoki corridor, it's one that I think is virtually complete now, and it's some solid piece of work that they have done. It's all hard pavement, and therefore should last much longer than that it was previously. But tell us something. Is it for the potential investor to indicate which route or road that it wants to work on, or what the government considers priority in terms of economic corridors?
Oh, it's both parties. First of all, the investor has to be willing to do it because they are the ones investing. And secondly, government is also showing the roads that they will prefer that are selected. But a lot of times we also find that the selection that the investor made also has some, let me say, some benefit for the investor. For example, the Lagos, the Apapa or Roshoki Road leading to the ports. It's obvious that one of the major challenges that is causing congestion in our ports is also access to the ports. So at the time Dangote chose to do that, he was having a lot of imports for building of the Dangote refinery coming through that port, and the port was clogged. So he chose to do that to enhance that. But later on, he decided to build another port, but he's still carrying on with this project. And this project, that road is built with hard concrete and ions. It will last up to about 100 years. It's built in the same way you will build a runway because of the nature the terrain there, and also the volume of traffic that goes through that road. When he chose to build the Obajina road, also Obajina is where his cement factory is. So while it benefits government, the investors usually also have some benefit that they will get from an improved road infrastructure in the corridor that they choose.
Okay. The reason I'm asking this, Kirian, you see, there are some, I know you are not the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, but there are some fairly obvious economic corridors that have not been, as it were, taken up by investors under the tax credit scheme. If you look at Benin, Auchi, Okene, Lokoja axis, for instance, it remains, you have all kinds of obstructions and failed portions. If you were to go to Onitsha, Enugu, you have that issue. Benin, Warri, you have that issue. And then even Abuja, Abuja to Kaduna, and then of course from Kaduna on to Kano, you also have that issue. And people will just be wondering, because the other day, fuel tanker drivers were threatening to go on strike on account of what they described as the bad state of the roads.
So let me also say, still, the concept is the same. Government can also invite investors to consider, but the investor has to agree. By the way, the Enugu-Onitsha is one of the roads in the second set that have been approved, and MTN Nigeria is going to build that road. So there's more coming on. It's a process we have to review. We have to ensure that this company that wants to do this investment actually has the capacity, financial capacity, and also the technical capacity to do it. So we're hoping for more and more of this to happen. And by the way, NMPC also chose to build some of those roads. The 21 roads across the country, the NMPC, all of them are leading to depots. So it's helping to solve the problem that NMPC has in terms of access to its depots across the country.
Well, of course, you don't have to blame the private sector in this, because they take up routes that are also economically reasonable to them, as operators, in the system. Right. Madam, let me ask you this. Most nations achieve sectoral development, through borrowing. But in Nigeria here, many have expressed a concern over the level of external borrowing. Tell us about the 2020-2023 medium-term debt management strategy in relation to external borrowing in Nigeria. And if you could add this, we would like to explain to us how do the sovereign sukuk bonds function, especially with regards to financing road infrastructure in Nigeria.
Well, I'm really glad you asked this question, because it gives me an opportunity to again explain to the public that the borrowing that we do are planned borrowings. We don't just get up one day and say we have to borrow for this or that project. We have a medium-term debt management strategy that is approved by a debt management board chaired by His Excellency the Vice President. I'm a member, CBN, and a number of ministers are members, with the Debt Management Office as the secretariat. So we have a strategy for 2021 to 2024. That is the one that is currently ongoing. And in the strategy, some ceilings and floors are determined. For example, we will determine the maximum ratio that you borrow between domestic and foreign, and also the mix that you have in terms of the length of the borrowing, as well as the maximum that you would borrow at any particular time. And by the way, that is also determined by the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So this strategy is determined by financial regulations, by the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and also we have a continuous review of the sustenance of our debt. This is done biannually and reported and published, so that people see how much we have borrowed and how much we have to pay in terms of debt service obligation at any particular point in time, and the total debt portfolio vis-a-vis the revenues that we use to service this debt. Nigeria has an excellent record of debt service. That's why when we go out to borrow, we always end up having our offerings oversubscribed several times over, because people know that there's that fiscal discipline in terms of debt. But people have also a right to be concerned, because when you borrow, you have to pay, and we do have revenue challenges, and we're struggling with being able to at the same time service debt as well as service government. But so far, we've been managing very well. We have not had any crisis, and we don't envisage to see any crisis in the future. In terms of the second question, the Sukuk bond, it's another form of borrowing, but also is a form of PPP. It's a form of PPP. We go out in the market, we raise Sukuk bonds. So it's Nigerians or the public that invest and provide their money for those bonds to be issued. And when we go out, we say, these are the projects that will be, your money will be used to build. So you have a lot, it creates a lot of activity. You have investment firms that are representing investors. So you go as an individual to a firm and interested in this is the size I want. They buy for you, and you are assured of your payment, your payment at the due date of that investment. So many investors are finding an avenue to invest in national infrastructure through the instrument of the Sukuk bond. So far, we've issued Sukuks, 4 circles, 4 tranches of Sukuk in the total sum of 612 billion. And from starting with 25 roads to 28, we have 44 roads, and each time these roads are spread across the 6 geopolitical zones. As a matter of fact, we end up, because of pressures from the legislature, just divide the fund equally over the 6 geopolitical zones. And the other thing is that the roads are visible. You can see them. You can see the signboards being, and it means that for that year, that road is assured of how much is coming. So it's just only up to the contractor to perform, and then they get paid.
Well, tell us something about our debt servicing obligation. You have all kinds of figures being bounded in the media. Some say we're spending up to 92% of our revenues on debt servicing. What is the actual figure? That's one. Second point also relates to the whole idea of having to be able to generate revenue from these investments. You say, you reconstruct a road or you build a new road. Without more, that could be a facilitator for economic activities that then have a knock-on effect. But being able to therefore recoup your investment directly from that appears missing. And that's why there's also been the talk about, say, having tolls on some of these roads. What are the considerations? First question, one more time, Honorable Minister, how much are we spending on our annual debt servicing? And secondly, how else can we recover the investments through the borrowing on road reconstruction or road construction? So
in the 2022 budget, what we have as proportion of debt service to revenue is 55%. So if our revenue performs 100%, then the debt service will be 55%. But you have some months where some instruments become due, so the debt could be high in some, the debt service could be high in some months and low in others. But when you look at the average, as per the budget, is 55. In 2021, the average was around 50, but the actual was an average of around 70%. So it is tough. That's why we keep saying what we have is a revenue problem. We just need to increase our revenues. We've been able to increase the revenue quantum in 2021 in actual terms, and also that has reflected also in increase in revenues that we're expecting in 2022. So it's a daily tracking exercise for us. We continue to track what we can do now and what has to be deferred. We also have debts that we incur through issuance of promissory notes to meet debt service obligations to local contractors for liabilities that government has incurred even before this administration. Those also add. So, but when we issue them, we now track and see at which period can we actually pay this. So we issue promissory notes for 5 years, for 10 years, and people are happy to accept them because at least they are paid off, and even though they lose some value, but they move on.
We're tolling the roads?
On tolling the roads, the Ministry of Works has commissioned a program that they call the HTMDI, which is a road project that is currently competing. They have an open process of competition for 14 roads to be tolled across the country. So these are roads that are already tolled. And also some of the investors that are doing RITC roads are also beginning to show interest in taking over tolling of those roads. So there are some of those toll projects that will come on. The first selected roads are the roads that the ministry deemed are the most commercially viable. The investors will do the tolling of the road, and then they will recover their investment from the tolls over time.
Okay, madam, let's turn to the power sector. Since this administration came to power, there have been some initiatives, to enhance energy security, of course, for industrialization. Can we say that the country's energy or power challenge has been impacted, since this administration came to power? What are those giant strides, that have been taken in this sector, and what is the expected impact as we move on as a nation?
Well, let me first of all say that the Nigerian electricity industry is, the participants are a mix of government and private participants. As you know, the generation and the distribution arms of the industry have been privatized. TCN is owned, the transmission is owned 100% by government. One of the key achievements for us is for me the improvement in the participation of the private sector. Of course, there is also improvements in the power itself. There's the Siemens project that we call the Presidential Power Initiative that has finally taken off. There was some delays, but there's a company that has been floated, the Federal Government of Nigeria Power Company. There's a management in place, there's a board in place, and the projects have been contracted, and we're looking at being able to start deploying within 2021 some of these projects. So the projects are a combination of transmission and distribution projects. Some of them greenfield, some of them brownfield, in partnership with TCN as well as the distribution companies. The federal government is borrowing from the German government through a financial intermediators, and the federal government is looking at on-lending to the distribution companies the component related to distribution, because we're investing together. So the lending will be some form of a shareholder loan because we are the ones that are borrowing, and the distribution networks have indicated their interest in participating in the financing in that way.
Which area is Siemens going to concentrate its activities?
It's across the country. It's across the country. It was an extensive exercise.
Is it in transmission or distribution?
So both.
Or generation?
No, not generation. Distribution and transmission. The distribution networks were asked to provide their performance improvement plans. That is the investments that they think are necessary to either upgrade the existing network or expanding them. And they provided this. And so selections were made based on their choices, and then it was also cross-checked with them the projects that will be deployed for distribution under the PPI. The same thing with the transmission projects.
What about the companies that are already existing in those areas? For instance, of course, it's been unbundled for a while now, and they will have some existing companies who are in transmission or distribution. So how is Siemens going to key in? Are they going to work collaboratively?
That's exactly what I said. I said the distribution companies were asked to provide their performance improvement plans. That is investments that they need to be done on their network. And then it was selected from those, and then they were shown that these are the projects that will be deployed. Because, okay, government is borrowing, the projects will be done by government, but it's a loan to them. And remember also, government is also an investor in the distribution network. We still own 40%, 60% private sector, 40% government. But transmission is just TCN.
There were also reports recently, Honorable Minister, to the effect that the Chinese were reportedly, again, no longer releasing tranches of the facility to Nigeria for the continued construction of the railway infrastructure. Is that a true story? And if it is so, why are the Chinese holding back? And how do we hope to get around this?
So, yeah, it is partly true in the sense that we have seen some significant slowdown in terms of making progress in either existing facilities or new ones that we are discussing. And of course, it emanated from the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. And I think China as a country decided to look inwards and conserve its resources and to reassess the pace at which they were providing financing globally. So it didn't affect only Nigeria, but we do have contracts between us for some committed projects, and they have not indicated to us that they're not going to do them. It's just that there seems to be some slowdown in the pace of the work, and we continue to push and to engage them. And also, it didn't help that in country there was this hue and cry about the risk of taking loans from China and how they can appropriate the country. They are very sensitive about things like this, so they've been watching to see. When we take loans from China, we give them sovereign guarantees. The sovereign guarantees comes with some commitments and exemptions, and they expect those guarantees to be given. But the incident that happened, people think you shouldn't give a guarantee. Why would any nation borrow to you without a guarantee that you will pay? No lender will give you funds without a guarantee that you pay. So we were asked to ask for exemptions for some category of assets owned by NMPs, assets owned by CBN, NSIA, and there's a fourth one which I've forgotten. And they're saying, and security, of course, security assets, that's the fourth one. So there's this back and forth that we're doing for them to be able to get some kind of a middle road, because we have been borrowing from China. It's not the first time. And they're saying, why are you changing what we have been, the kind of agreements that we have now? They're not satisfied. And here also we have to cause some changes to happen to accommodate the national concerns.
Yeah, because we have the Attorney General of the Federation as our guest on Good Morning Nigeria sometime last year, when there was some uproar, if you may, around first the drafting of the contracts. Some person said, oh, the contracts were drafted in Mandarin, which is the official language of China. And others also said, look, why would you have clauses relating to sovereign guarantees? The Honourable Minister tried to explain why those sovereign guarantees are necessary in the first instance anyway, between lender and borrower, where particularly there are nations. But it's interesting that it's one of the facts that have probably now affected the Chinese, in being more forthcoming with the release. But will this in any way impact the delivery timelines for some of these critical projects?
If financing is delayed, it will affect delivery timelines. Yes, of course, because you're funding the projects by loans. So if disbursements are due and they don't come through, it will affect delivery timelines, unfortunately. But we're working to solve the problem. We believe we will soon be able to get through with it with the support of the, and we're working through the Attorney General. The contracts are not in Mandarin. If you do a contract with French, the contract will be both in French and in English. And in their case, it's in Mandarin and in English. I don't know how to read Mandarin, so so the contracts are in English. Nor does the Attorney General. Yes.
Yeah, Kira, before I would like the Honourable Minister to just make a general comment. because we have our regular economic analysts. And when the NBS latest numbers were released, we're talking about, say, look, the economy has grown by so much, now outpacing the population growth rate, and we hope that that is sustained. Again, the projection of 3% has been surpassed. But the whole idea relates to, in their view, of, that's to say, a team of analysts, impact on welfare, how sustainable this growth might be. And the ultimate question says, look, what do we do with some of those very critical rates of inflation, exchange rate? And that, in a sense, the CBN has virtually, according to them, exhausted the monetary policy tools available to it to continue to manage the exchange rate. But that fiscal responsibility or discipline or intervention is also required from the political authority, so that at the end of the day, you can have more salutary consequences arising from the positive growth that we are seeing 5 consecutive months.
So what is fiscal discipline? Fiscal discipline is being able to fund your needs on a planned basis. We do national plans. We do medium-term rolling plans for expenditure. We do debt management strategy plans. And we also follow the requirements of the Fiscal Responsibility Act as well as the financial regulations. For me, that's the beginning of fiscal discipline. And we are now able to fund government from government's revenue. We're not borrowing to pay salary. We're not borrowing for recurrent expenditure. We did say in our plans that capital expenditure will be done by borrowing, and that's exactly what we're doing. Okay. For me, that's the discipline. We're reviewing our revenue expenditure, our tax expenditure, because we have too many waivers and concessions that we're not seeing the benefits from those. But we also said we have to allow whatever waivers and concessions have been given for the time to run out, for the tenure to run out. So we're reviewing those as well, and we're beginning to claw back and scale down.
All right, Madam.
On those.
We need thank you for those explanations and the clarity on certain issues concerning borrowing, of course, and funding of critical infrastructure for the nation to grow. So at this point, we'd like to thank you for sharing your time and your thoughts, and more importantly, explaining to Nigerians what the situation is at the moment. Minister of Finance, Budget and Town Planning, Zainab Ahmed.
National planning. You said town planning. I thought you would be delighted to add town planning.
National planning.
No, I don't want town planning. I wouldn't know how to do that.
Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed. Thank you once again for being here this morning.
Thank you, sir.
We'll see you again some other time.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
All right. We're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. That's our first topic done with. The second part of our program today will be taking a look at the issue of agri-entrepreneurship. Do stay with us.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
Nelson Mandela once said, "Sports has the power to change the world," and that mission starts this week in Nigeria with an international gathering of legends and experts in sports and diplomacy, featuring legendary African-American Olympian Ron Freeman, international African-American coach Ron Davis, Nigerian-American foremost sports marketer Idorenyi Uyo, and Tanzanian-American historian and diplomatic expert, Professor Ikewemba Banten. They are all on a common mission to change the world with the power of sports and diplomacy. They meet in Lagos, Nigeria, for the mother of all conversations at the main auditorium of the Nigerian Institute for International Affairs, Kofo Abayomi Street, Victoria Island, Lagos. Date, Thursday, February 24, 2022, from 11 in the morning. This is powered by the Nigerian Television Authority, the National Council for Arts and Culture, the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, and the Nigerian Institute for International Affairs. Announcer, Ambassador Olusegun Odegbami.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Watford will seek to do a double over the Red Devils when they travel to Old Trafford this weekend. It's Manchester United versus Watford on the Premier League Live, showing on the network service of the NTA from 3:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Baba Ijebu, empowered by Integral.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on NTA Network Service. Now, let's take a background report. All right, as a matter of fact, we have the issue of timing here this morning, so we're going to do away with the backgrounder, which of course could have given us a line for conversation. For now, we have in the studio a number of guests who are going to partake in this very second leg of our conversation this morning. And first we have Professor Muhammad Kota Yahya, Professor of Agriculture, University of Ibadan, and former SSG, Niger State. So you're welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure, sir. Good morning.
All right. We also have Aziz Moyowa, former Director, Agribusiness, Federal Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. So it's a pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. We also have Sharon Tage, Media and Communications Lead, Lofting Allied Partners Limited. I hope I got that correctly.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. Good morning.
All right. You're welcome. Kinsley.
All right, now let's check out our Zoom connection. We're supposed to have Professor Emmanuel Ikani, Executive Director and CEO of the National Agricultural Extension and Research Liaison Services at ABU in Zaria. Professor Ikani, pleasure to have you. I hope you are.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate to join the program.
Okay, we also have Tunji Ido, also via Zoom, Executive Director, Foundation for Partnership Initiatives in the Niger Delta. And this, of course, facilitates access to inputs, markets, and technologies for smallholder farmers in the Niger Delta region. Tunji Ido, if you are there via Zoom, of course, I understand that the connection is blank. So we place an asterisk against that. Gentlemen, and Sharon, once again, I'm delighted to have you with us on the program this morning. Our time is largely abridged, so we go straight into the essence of agricultural entrepreneurship. We will be hearing agri as a business. When we say agricultural entrepreneurship, what are we looking at, Professor Kota Yahya?
Thank you very much. The concept emanates from the fact that agriculture, like all other occupations and careers, is hinged on production and engaging people in various value chains. So opportunity for people to earn legitimate income from engagement in this occupation make it a very lucrative entrepreneurship. In our own concept, to achieve this, the International Agricultural and Food Policy Research Center in Washington, D.C., has requested and developed a robust framework for the sound agricultural ecosystem, where it relates that to achieve this, you need policy, you need institutional framework, and technological support system and individual capacity. In our own climb, to achieve this, we know that policy consistency is desirous for us to achieve a successful agricultural entrepreneurship. Where you are inundated or challenged with policy somersault, today is this package, tomorrow a new person comes in, he jettisons it, another person come up with a fresh one, and then we continue to move on the same spot without any progress. Is not acceptable for successful entrepreneurship development. We also have the challenge, institutional framework. No matter whoever is in the saddle of responsibility in managing our agricultural system, must of necessity appreciate the fact that you need, and indeed, the institutional mandate to be able to achieve what you are doing. Whoever is there does not matter. In the same vein, technology is driving the world. In agricultural extension now, we are moving from agricultural extension delivery system to knowledge management because of the sophistication that technology has brought to bear in terms of technology transfer. The same premise, individual capacity, no matter what, there is continuous engagement of those actors in the agricultural system to continue to update their knowledge because of the changes of what is happening globally. And Nigerian agricultural system cannot be separated from what is happening in other parts of the world. Therefore...
All right, Prof. We're not cutting you short, but we want to do what I would refer to as the first round, because we have a number of guests. We will return to you in the course of the conversation. Aziz Muyiwa, you are a former director agribusiness in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and you have a wide experience when it comes to agricultural business. So what is the relationship between agribusiness and agricultural entrepreneurship? Is there any synergy between the two? And if there is, how best can this entrepreneurship be practiced?
Yeah, thank you very much. You will realize that agriculture in this country had always been a traditional way of life. People see it as a way of life. You can never be a farmer or an agriculturist unless you were born into the place. But the terminology agriculture as a business came in during the implementations of the agricultural transformation agenda when Dr. Akinwumi Adesina was the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. He believed that there's no way we can break this cycle of poverty unless you make agriculture as a business. What is agriculture as a business? Like he was fond of saying, anybody that sells Coke, you get Coca-Cola anywhere in Nigeria. You cannot see a situation whereby government would be involving in it and selling Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola producers, they make it available everywhere. So what he is saying is that agriculture should also be like a business where all government should do is it should be private sector led, while government should only enable it to make agriculture as a business and to ensure that people, you are able to develop them their entrepreneurial capacity in agriculture. All government needs to do is to provide the enabling environment, provide infrastructure, provide credit facility, facilitate their access to input, provide irrigation facility, provide markets for them. Let me tell you, Nigerian business people, they are very enterprising. You will discover now, and when you look at the major contributor to this current growth rate, Nigerian growth rate, you will discover that agriculture is doing well. You guys asked a very a good question. You asked the honorable ministers by saying that in spite of the fact that we are recording a substantial growth in the economy, why is it not reflecting on inflation? Why is it not reflecting on average common man? Why are we not seeing the impact? It is because it's not inclusive. The only thing that can be inclusive is agriculture. One of us, let me quickly say, most Nigerians want to go into agriculture now because they believe there is no options. But government must provide the enabling environment. What is pulling it now. What is drawing it now is because we have the market. People want to buy. The demand is very high. An average Nigerian now spends, and I want to ask you, when you look at your income now, you spend substantial part on food. You forget about clothes. You are able to tell Madam, please, let's leave articles of ostentation for now. Let's put money on food. So agriculture as a business means that you can't go into any of the enterprises. Are you going to production? Are you going to distribution of fertilizer? Are you going to production of input? Are you going to mechanization? Are you going to marketing? Anything you want to invest with the hope of getting money is a business. So what we need to do is to keep on developing their capability through extension, through training, through linkage. Luckily now we have the agricultural continental free trade, whereby there's an opportunity for Nigeria to now export. Now we are now seeing the genuity of Nigeria. Now repackaging everything. Go to the department store now. Gari are being packaged very well, neatly. Ijebu Gari, neatly.
Proudly advertised.
Honestly. Even Kuli, they are doing an interesting thing now by packaging both Gari and Granite together. Packaging Gari and Kuli together. And we are now facilitating the exportation of this.
Okay, Alhaji Aziz, let me pause you there and bring in Professor Emmanuel Akoni, whom we earlier introduced via Zoom. If it's there, okay, Professor Akoni, we understand we've lost you. I saw you, I think you were in a vehicle. Probably you are in a network void. Another guest, Tunji Ido, we also introduced. Tunji Ido, of course, is the Executive Director of Foundation for Partnership Initiatives in the Niger Delta. Well, I was going to ask this question. It's a bit theoretical, but at the same time, I think that it has an impact on practice. Some persons would argue that we should not strive to lump too many things together at the same time so that we can achieve the critical mass that businesses can then actually take care of. For instance, what is our production capacity in agriculture today? Are we able to generate the requisite volume such that you will see, look, business opportunities are all over the place? Should that be our priority? Or everybody is just talking about, I want to be in packaging, I want to be in logistics. What logistics of what? Logistics of imported items? If you boost, if you say, look, the business now is to get all the things right there, instead of some of this back-breaking labor you still find in some quarters, get mechanized agriculture, get large-scale commercial farms, improve your seedlings, and so on and so forth, you will have the right yield. And then, of course, business will follow naturally from the way you then either corporatize or you get still dealing with cooperatives and smallholders.
So that's quite a lot, but I'm trying to unpack that to know what the specific question you would like me to respond to is. But you're right. The truth is that we don't produce enough to meet the market that is available in the country. I hope you can hear me all right.
We can hear you. We can hear you, Mr. Ido.
Okay. We still don't produce enough, so there's quite a huge market opportunity. And even what we produce gets a lot of it perishes because of a dearth of infrastructure and a dearth of several things that ought to be in place. But no doubt, and I want to build on what Mr. Aziz said earlier on, agriculture is a business. And more of the smallholder farmers have become aware of that. And they are doing their best, very industrious people. It's just that they are moving against some headwinds. Once we can remove more of those, then they can be incentivized and assisted to produce even more. But the truth is there's nothing that we consume here that we produce enough of. That's why there's still market for fish to be brought in, for poultry to be brought in, even though some of them are being brought in illegally. But we just don't produce enough, and that's what leaves room for alternatives. People still don't know enough about agriculture as well, about the opportunities that exist there and about the returns that you can get in doing that business, and whereby you don't have too many other businesses that will provide you some of those kind of returns. I mean, the sector can return as high as 40% if well integrated and if efficient and improved practices get deployed there. Aquaculture on its own returns an average of 30%. Poultry, if you sustain good returns over about 5 cycles, you can get about a return of 40%. Crop production, the same thing. And if you handle processing well, because many people, when they think of agriculture, only still think of the production side. That's why young people don't find that attractive. But processing and distribution can guarantee quick turnover as well. I'd like to leave it at that.
Well, you leave it at that, but I may have to continue with you. You said that the country does not produce enough, but oftentimes we hear that there are agricultural produce, that go wasting, especially the perishable ones, like fruits, tomatoes, mangoes, and carrots, and the rest of them. Now, are we not talking about the fact that if those produce are giving some value addition that they could be sustained for a while, wouldn't that have added to the volume of agricultural produce we have in Nigeria? Are we having the issue of government not providing the enabling environment, or that the farmers are incapacitated, especially the smallholder farmers, to actually engage in value addition when it comes to the produce that we churn out on a yearly basis?
You're absolutely correct. It's and the answer will be yes to both. One, we don't produce enough, so there's still room for more offtakes, for more outgrower schemes. But also part of what we produce perishes because we have poor infrastructure, because there is no value addition at those points. And we can't blame the farmers. They are mostly smallholder farmers who engage in production. But if there are enough incentives, if people have more access to information and data about these things, then others can join the value chain and undertake the value addition that you talk about. If people know that they can source produce from certain areas more conveniently, then they would not have to stick to the same markets that are already saturated. I'll tell you for an example. Cassava, Nigeria is the biggest producer of cassava in the whole world. The Niger Delta region contributes a significant chunk of that because that's the area where our own foundation operates, so I'll speak to that. But all the cassava there, almost 100% is consumed locally as gari for food. Those guys don't bother to sell to the industrial markets. The industrialists also have neglected that area for some time because they don't know how to enter. They have wrong perceptions of what the environment is. But the opportunities are now we are trying to facilitate more linkages between the people there and the off-takers from outside the environment who can use this for methanol and for starch and a few other things like that, because those opportunities are beginning to exist. But if we improve on infrastructure, roads are good, transportation improves, then a lot of these things will get out of the farms into areas where they can be taken, arrangements can be made, contracts signed for those who want to put value addition. Also, if the roads are good, infrastructure is good, people can site facilities, industries closer to the source of production for those value additions that you're talking about. I'm sure you are very familiar with the high target, high visible tomato project that we had, but that failed woefully because of some of these kind of variables.
All right, Mr. Tunjido, thank you very much there. What you said about cassava, we can also say the same thing, Kirian, about yams.
Yams.
Yams. It's not just for consumption or for export as was proposed some years ago. You have industrial uses as well as pharmaceutical uses for yams. Sharon Sage, let's bring you into the conversation at this time. Quite clearly, it doesn't appear that we have our fingers right on how to catalyze agribusiness in a way that ultimately it will be good for all along the entire value chain. My critical emphasis has been on production, mass production in whatever area that one decides to get into. Are we on track, or are we still just scratching the surface?
So I would always say that there's room for improvement. Now, in the agri sector, we're still scratching the surface. There's so much that is left undone. And then we just have conversations around it time and time again, that we do not necessarily go into the business of agri to see how it is done and to get our hands dirty to get it done. Now, we just talk. The ministries will talk. The donors who have the money and want to put it into the agri sector will just talk. But the smallholder farmers that do this work, how equipped are they for this production that we're looking to upscale? Some of them are in very rural areas, and their access to modern technology that could improve their production is very limited. And then we have people who sit in the urban areas who have access to this funding and then just not necessarily put it into as much use as is expected. And we come up with reports that say, oh, the agri sector is not doing enough. Oh, the farmers are not doing enough. Oh, there's so much that needs to be done. When the real guys who are getting their hands dirty, the real guys who are doing the work are not well equipped. So as regards catalyzing, of course, there's so much that is left to be done. We are scratching the surface. We have not even started, to be honest. I know that the last reports MBS released said agriculture contributed about 29% to the general growth of the economy. But how much of that contribution can we improve? If we have, like it was rightly mentioned by the last speaker, we have farm produce that go wasted because we do not have proper storage systems. We do not have off-takers. We do not have a market large enough to consume what we produce at the point when we produce it. We do not have mechanisms in place to either process this fresh farm produce and turn them into something that we can export to a larger market. How do we improve? How do we scale up, even if we have the funds? So as regards catalyzing, trust me, there's so much that we have to do. We are barely scratching the surface.
Okay, we hope to get to some point, where we would, leave that corridor of scratching and move to something very higher, which you termed upscaling. Professor Okutaya, in your earlier submission, you talked about the policy inconsistency, policy somersault, and having the right institutional framework. I want to speak to that once more, because one, if we do not get the policy right, whatever implementation you are putting in place may not be cascaded down, to the categories of farmers that we have, because we have categories of farmers, and of course the least of them are the lower income farmers, those who do not even have access to any kind of credit, those who don't have access to any kind of facility that will enable them to scale up their production capacity. Now, what can be done in a country like this, now that we now understand that agriculture should be seen as a business enterprise? What are the critical moves that should be made to ensure that we enshrine agriculture and entrepreneurship in our agricultural system?
Thank you very much. We need to let us be very frank and look at the issues with some critical mindset. Number one, the policy issue, let's tell ourselves the truth. We cannot continue to deceive ourselves that everything is well, especially in the agricultural sector, when the policy framework is not sustained over administration or over leadership. For example, agricultural extension policy in Nigeria. Nigeria belongs to the African Advisory Forum for Agricultural Service in Africa, AFAS, Nigerian Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services, of which I'm privileged to be a member of the executive as public relations advisor. Nigeria is going to host in 2023 the Agricultural Extension Week. Uganda hosted the last one. But look at those countries, they have robust extension policies on the ground. Meanwhile, everybody look up to Nigeria as the giant that should lead in terms of agriculture, in terms of policy, in terms of initiatives. But unfortunately, we don't even have agriculture policy on the ground. For over 4 years to come up with an agriculture policy is being changed from one management to one leader to the other, is not seeing the light of the day. And this is the only way you can get to the rural producers, you can get to the massive of small-scale producers who are responsible for 70% of the entire agricultural production in this country. The rural folks, thank God for the sustenance of Rural Access Mobility Project that has now added marketing as a component to the current dispensation because they realize that they have opened up the rural areas. Farmers in those affected states are able to bring their food to the places where they can move to urban centers now. Now they have added marketing and including all the activities in preservation that Idowu mentioned. You can add those ones. So as a matter of fact, we must address the fundamentals. Government must be the enabler of these activities to happen by creating an enabling environment, policy framework, the institutional to sustain some of these things that can work for the advantage of the producers.
There have been interventions by this administration.
What I'm saying is that
borrowers and the rest of them.
That's why I'm saying that it should be expanded beyond the current scope. Because if, as Kingsley said, the production should be enhanced, value addition at every level should be also enhanced so that the wastages will be reduced and that people will have attraction. Mr. Aziz will bear witness that some of our policies in agriculture over the years that will develop a framework like the Benin, which you are familiar with, 9-4 oilseed and Malaysia story, that wasted time. Malaysia took over and now a leading world. The same thing, agricultural processing zones that we initiated in this country about 5-6 years ago, that Nigeria has been dilly-dallying. Ethiopia took it over and now using their own centers and borrowed the same thing from Nigeria, and they are now exporting to the rest of the world. Now we have even entrepreneurs who are producing and adding value. I have an example in Apple by one business visa. Doing the same, you see women coming with value-added products that can compete with all these products around the world. But what of the expansion? Government should look for this kind of people to support them and provide credit facilities. The banking industry in Nigeria must support agriculture by providing credit and reduce the conditions so that these cooperatives and people can have access.
Professor Yahaya, that's a very valid issue. I would like Alhaji Aziz to also come in here. You're out of service now, but what is the whole idea of agribusiness? Is it the entrenchment of subsistence, entrenchment of mom and pop business, or ultimately big business where you can have volume and therefore the spin-off will be more healthy for everyone? I'm asking this question away from, let's say, food crops. Let's take aquaculture, for instance. When I hear of aquaculture, sometimes it doesn't get beyond people having a fish pond in their backyard and disturbing their neighbors, with the private nuisance of breeding catfish and tilapia. But where are the fishing trawlers? The Ibru family made part of its big cash from Ibru fish when we were growing up in the 60s and in the 70s. Where are our fishing trawlers? We hear that foreigners will come to our entire coastline, harvest our fish and go away. So what is this agribusiness that we are talking about? Is it for me to be scratching the head, or Kieran and I will go and produce KK Gari, and we are selling?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question, and I'm happy you are now a professional in agriculture, even though you are mixing aquaculture with deep sea ocean fisheries. And I know you are trying, and we need to encourage you. We need to encourage. But let me quickly go back to a very intelligent question asked by Corinne, which is also, what do we need to do?
That's the point.
What do we need to do to facilitate people, to attract people into agribusiness? Most especially the youth. Because there's a saying in Yoruba that there's no more farmers on the farm. They are getting old. And so, since we have the largest population now among the energetic youth who are engaging in all sorts of bad vices, there's now need to attract them. What do we need to do? One, what do we need to do to incentivize them, to bring them into agriculture, to ensure that we make agriculture attractive, so that they can do it big? And I'm going to now zero in on very good question you asked about aquaculture. Don't forget, Nigeria is the leaders in aquaculture in the whole of Africa now. We are the one, and even the gap with other countries is far, far we are doing very well. What do we need to do? We need to provide incentive. What are the kind of incentive? One, there must be security, because there's nothing you can do if there's no security. Take the case of a young guy in my area, in Oyo area, who came from the United States of America to invest in agriculture, was doing very well, a very big farm, but had to lose his life due to security in the Abuja area. We are all familiar with this. So security, security, security. Two, provide infrastructures. When you look at the master infrastructure plan, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development alone cannot provide the infrastructure in rural areas. According to the master infrastructural plan developed by Federal Ministry of Budget and National Planning, we require almost $1.3 trillion to do infrastructure in every nooks and crannies on this country. The total budget of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is no more than 70 billion. So this cannot even develop rural infrastructure in a local government. So to do rural infrastructure, we have to be innovative. We have to bring in innovation. And don't forget that before you can tie down the youth in the rural area, you must make agricultural romantic, if I should use the dance ball. You must make it psychedelic. You must make it loving in such a way that they will love it and they want to stay in the rural area. To do this, there must be light, there must be internet. Government came with an innovative method of doing it in the past, which is known as special agro-industrial processing. So what do we mean by special agro-industrial processing? Look at, and this can create competitions in every nook and go to Cadaver Valley where they are producing tomato. Look for international company or national company that can be an anchor investor here. Provide infrastructure for production, for processing, for marketing, everything, the whole value chain in this area. Dedicated to this area by government, by state, federal, local government, by companies. And once you do this, you will discover that we started it, Ethiopia did it, and they are now exporting out of the country. Thank God the government has taken it back. Well, more than 17 companies are now investing in it. About 17 of them will soon start. And you start seeing people, instead of moving from rural to urban, they are now moving, they will now be moving from urban to rural area. There will be security there, there will be road there will be light there will be power there will be every infrastructure there. All the value chain segments of production, processing, value will be done in the same place.
That's a kind of a cluster.
Thank you. May God bless you. And this is the way, so that by the time we finish with Cadaver Valley, we go to Oyo area where they are producing. We also go to Niger Delta like our...
yes, we are going to him.
By the time we do it in all these areas, we will have succeeded.
We are going to him now. You are talking about
thank you very much.
Thank you. Having cluster, from production to production process.
Everything will be
the entire value chain. All right. Let's return to you, Tunji Idowu. PIND is a non-profit organization facilitating access to inputs, markets, and technologies for smallholder farmers in Niger Delta. Tell us how this has, played out. Since your organization is responsible for all that I've mentioned now, how are the smallholder farmers being facilitated in your domain with respect to marketing, inputs, technologies, and what have you? Somebody has said here that it's even difficult for smallholder farmers to key into the modern technologies that we require to enhance our agriculture. So what is happening in your domain with respect to these?
I'd like to respond to that, latching onto something that Sharon said earlier on. We realize that the bulk of Nigeria's agriculture, especially the production side, is hinged on smallholder farmers. And so when PIND was established 12 years ago and we started to study and look at the root causes of the problems, we knew we had to focus on those guys. And part of what the data showed us from our research was that a lot of them were using antiquated methods. So the first thing we needed to focus on was how to improve their knowledge about what they're doing. Knowledge of these resistant seeds, stems, and things of that nature. We focus on 5 value chains: aquaculture, cassava, cocoa, poultry, and oil palm. And so we started working with them in that regard, helping them to be exposed to better knowledge, attitude, and practices to improve their productivity. We linked them up because we don't do things directly. We are there as facilitators so that when we exit the intervention, the real market actors can continue without things crashing as it happens with some other development projects. So we link them up with those who can provide them service. They were not aware of the right inputs. They were not aware of chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers that can help improve their productivity, improve their yield, and also protect them against diseases. So for the last 10 years since we started working with them across these value chains, this is the kind of thing that we do so that you can improve their income. A lot of them have had their incomes improved.
Okay, Mr. Tunji Ido, so we have to apologize. We're out of time virtually. And Sharon Sage, your closing thoughts in, can you do Usain Bolt, less than 10 seconds?
All right, so at the company where I work, Lofty Inc., we're currently engaged in a project called Project Sparrow. Now that project is focused on training 70 MSMEs in the agri sector. They do agri business or agri-tech business. And what we're looking to do is train these people, rural farmers, 50 of them, and then eventually we'll scale down to 20 who will be giving financing to upscale what they're doing already. We would also have access to 25,000 smallholder farmers to improve what they do. I had mentioned earlier that usually we say funds are not available, but this project is being funded by USAID. And we're going into the rural areas to meet these real farmers, not those that just sit down and say they're farmers. We're going to meet them. And the outcome we're expecting to have is make agriculture look beautiful. Make agriculture produce for itself enough to take care of its people and to export.
Okay, but you have not really got into my local government, right? So we hope to see you with this program. Just to have a lot of smallholder farmers who are involved in this. At this point, gentlemen and lady, we have to call it a day, and thank you immensely for being here for the program. Professor Mohammed Kota Yahya, Professor of Agriculture, we thank you for coming. We're running out of time. So Aziz Moyewa, former Director of Agribusiness, Minister of Agriculture, we thank you also for being here this morning. Sharon Sage, we need to have you more on this program on agricultural matters because we need to tell us a lot about what USAID is doing in this connection. Thank you indeed. Tunji Idowu, Executive Director of Foundation for Partnership Initiatives in Niger Delta. We also appreciate your contribution this morning on the show. We had the Professor Ekani partially, but he couldn't be part of the program because of issues relating to connection to his Zoom line. And so we call it today. Well, thank you indeed for being here this morning.
All right, the program is back tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves and one another. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Kirian Omaya. Do have a great day.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Issues in the sports sector remain one of the most debated among Nigerians due to the passion, followership, government involvement, impact on Nigeria's external image and our national life in the sports parliament. The NTA offers Nigerians deep views on issues with experts in the sports sector, offering in-depth analysis, hindsight, insight and foresight towards elevating Nigerian sports to the zenith on the floor of the sports parliament. Sports Parliament, a unique platform for sports discussions, showing live on the NTA. Keep a date with the parliamentarians.
Your eyes have it.
This is the network service of the NTA.